Okay, by the way, I'm not going to have time to go through everything I want to go through today, so I will be picking, I'm gonna do 10 more minutes on this, and then I'm going to pick it up in the next series of videos. So we will not be getting through all of the Fortinbras material today. The next thing I want to point out to you guys, though, is so what Hamlet does is he feels like all this war is stupid. Um, and then that causes him to give one of his 7 major speeches, one of his really big speeches, where he just feels he's looking at all these soldiers that are going to die over nothing, and he starts, like Hamlet likes to do, he starts wondering, what is even the point of being alive? This is so fucking stupid. Um, so he begins his speech at the bottom of page 26. How all occasions do a form against me and spur my dull revenge, meaning everything I see reminds me I'm supposed to kill Claudius, even though I don't feel like it. What is a man? What's the point of being a person? If his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed, right? There's got to be more to life than just eating and sleeping. Because if life is just eating and sleeping, you are a beast no more. Like, that's all you are. You're just a beast. You're nothing more than a beast. Sure he, that's God, see the capital letter there. Sure he that made us with such large discourse, right? God made us with this ability to talk and think. Sure, he that made us with such large discourse, looking before and after, meaning we have these brains, we can remember the past, we can think about the future, and God gave us these gifts. What are we using them for? He gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fust in us unused. Like, why, if life is just about sleeping and eating, what is the point of it? You're just like an animal. He says God gave us brains that can think about the past and the future and can reason and think. And like, what's the point of it? Did he give this so that we just would ignore the power to think and make better decisions? And Hamlet's really frustrated by Fortinbras's kind of he's kind of frustrated by Fortinbras's sort of idiocy here. And he says, now whether it be bestial oblivion, meaning like being like an animal. So he's not sure what's causing him to do this. But he says, lest it be bestial oblivion, maybe Hamlet's like an animal, or some forgetfulness. Oblivion's like total forgetfulness. Animals don't really remember things, Hamlet thinks. Now, whether it be bestial oblivion, or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered hath 1 part wisdom, and ever 3 part coward. I do not know why yet I live to say this thing's to do, since I have cause and will and strength and means to do it. So he says, I don't know whether it's because I'm like a beast or thinking too precisely on the event. I mean, maybe the problem is that he spends too much time thinking about killing Claudius, and thinking about something often makes you not do it. You gotta sometimes you have to sometimes when you have to make a choice, just think and you think and you think and you think and think and you don't do it. I'm sure you guys know this from your papers. A lot of my students, for example, I'll tell them they have to do a research paper, and they'll be like, okay, professor, I'm going to think of an idea. And then they come back to me and they go, I never thought of an idea, and they didn't turn the paper in, they get a 0. Because what they did was, the problem, like it, Hamlet doesn't really want to kill anybody. Similarly, my students don't really want to write a paper, and so Hamlet uses the excuse of thinking too much to avoid killing Claudius, and my students use the excuse of thinking about a paper topic so they don't have to get started. So Hamlet says maybe thinking too precisely on the event, and then Hamlet says, and this is a very honest appraisal, I really like that he has this self-knowledge, he says, thinking too much on the event, a thought which quartered hath 1 part wisdom and ever 3 parts coward. He says, I feel like 25% of the reason why I'm not killing Claudius is wisdom, meaning it's dangerous to kill the king. I probably shouldn't do that. I'm going to get killed, or maybe I'll fail. That's wisdom. He says it's 25%, 1 part wisdom, 3 parts coward. So 25% of why he's not doing it is because it's probably a bad idea. But he says 75% of the reason I'm not doing it is because I'm a coward. He just doesn't want to. And then Shakespeare writes one of his best lines, and this is hard to see, but I'm sure you've noticed in the play that people use a lot of big words, and the vocabulary is tough. But what Shakespeare does in this next part is when Hamlet's talking about how it's so simple, killing the king should be such a simple thing, and I have so many good reasons to do it. Shakespeare writes a line that consists of like 26 words, each of which are 1 syllable long. I don't know if you'll be able to hear how intense this sounds, but I'm going to give it a shot. Or thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered hath but 1 part wisdom and ever 3 part coward. I do not know why yet I live to say this thing's to do, since I have cause and will and strength and means to do it. I do not know why yet I live to say this thing's to do, since I have cause and will and strength and means to do it. He says, I don't know why I'm alive saying, I gotta do this, since I have so many good reasons. I have energy, and I have reasons, and I'm strong, and I have weapons, but he just doesn't do it. He says he doesn't even really understand why. Maybe it's cowardice. He just doesn't even want to do it. And then he says there's so many good reasons to do it, and also when he sees things outside of him, like these soldiers, it makes him feel bad. He says, examples gross as earth exhort me. There's so many reasons that I see, for example, this army. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition puffed makes mounds at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. Makes mouths at the invisible event means like he's chomping at the bit. You know, like if you put food in front of a dog, they'll be like they want it, you know, even if they can't get to it yet. And Fortinbras is so excited to go to war, he's like a dog going, like he wants to get at that food and eat it. And he says he's going to expose all these people are going to die. He's exposing all that is mortal and unsure. That's the bodies of all his soldiers, to all that fortune, death, and danger dare. And why is he doing that? Even for an eggshell. He's fighting over something completely worthless, a little patch of ground that has no profit in it but the name. And so Hamlet's point is like, this guy is willing to get piles of people killed over nothing. So I, Hamlet, should be able to kill one person, Claudius, since I have a good reason. But somehow it's just easier for Fortinbras to go to war and get everybody killed over nothing. And Hamlet finds it difficult to kill Claudius for a good reason, because they're different people. They're very different people. And Fortinbras is excited to go to war, and Hamlet doesn't really seem excited about it at all. So he compares their situations. He says, rightly to be great is not to stir without great argument, meaning if you're a powerful person, you know, you should get in a fight for a reason. But it's more than that. Greatly to find quarrel in a straw when honor's at the stake. So even a great person like Hamlet should fight even over a small thing because his honor is at the stake. So he says, how stand I then, who have a father killed, he's got a dead dad, a mother stained because of Claudius, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men, that for a fantasy and a trick of fame go to their graves like beds. These people, for a trick of fame, because Fortinbras told them they would be famous, they go to their graves like beds, meaning they go as willingly, they go to death as willingly as they would go to bed. That's how easy it is for them to kill and get themselves killed. But Hamlet doesn't find any of this easy. He doesn't think it's easy to kill, and he doesn't think it's easy to get himself killed. And he can't believe these people are doing it over nothing, over a worthless, a trick of fame. For a fantasy, and because the fantasy is like, oh, being a soldier is so exciting, and he thinks that's a fantasy and a trick of fame. You're going to be famous in war, and that makes people go to their graves willingly. And they fight for a plot, meaning a plot of land, whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb and continent enough to hide the slain. They are fighting over a piece of land. It's not tomb and continent to hide the slain. The piece of land they are fighting for is not large enough to hold all of the dead bodies that are going to die, all the people that are going to die fighting over it. And so one thing I would ask you to consider here, I don't know how much you know about the Gaza Strip in Israel, but it's in the Middle East, and it's something people have been fighting over for just decades and decades. It's just war and bloodshed. It's a very difficult sort of terrain. Now, what's interesting about the Gaza Strip, and what really reminds me of Hamlet here, is that it's there's no diamonds there, there's no technology there. There's no, there's not a gold mine there. It's not even really good farmland. So why do people fight over it? Well, it hath no profit in it but the name. It was named in the Bible as being a holy site for people, and so that's why they fight over it, for the name. It's the Holy Land, and so people feel like it's the Bible, or the Torah or whatever gave them, the right to this land, and so that's why they fight over it. There's no profit in it but the name. It's just a famous name, Jerusalem or whatever, right? These like a name like that, and it's the Holy Land in the Bible, and so people feel like they got to hold on to it. And the other thing about the Gaza Strip that's often hard to remember is so many people have died fighting over this thing, and there have been so many wars over the decades, and it's such a terrible place full of bloodshed. It's so difficult, people fighting over it. But what I ask you to do is think about this. Imagine leaving the MCC along the West Side Highway and walking until you get to about 34th Street, and then walking over to Fifth Avenue, and then taking Fifth Avenue south down back to the MCC. That's the size of the Gaza Strip. It's that big. It is not tomb and continent. It is not tomb and continent enough to hide the slain. It is more people have died fighting over the Gaza Strip than could possibly be buried there. And it has no gold, and it has no diamonds, and it has no farmland. It has no profit in the name, and people will die fighting over a plot of land like that. And this is what frustrates Hamlet and makes him crazy. I think I'm going to have to probably stop here. What I'm going to pick up with next time is the finale. The next time we see Fortinbras, everyone has killed each other. And Fortinbras shows up at the end to take over, so I will cover that in another video next time, and then we'll get started on other more exciting things. Actually, maybe I'm going to do it. All right, I'll see you guys next time.